Okay.
Right.
Live there. Instagram, about to go live here. All right. We're good. All right. Couple things here.
I think we're live.
Are you live yet?
I am live.
Perfect.
Oh, all right.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone.
Okay.
Dr. VanderWel, Dr. Tan,
Hello.
on the Eviva live Q&A / discussing multiple things. And that, I think the one thing we're going to talk about today is how to navigate the holidays. A very challenging time for many people to kind of stay on track, stay on the path of righteousness, trying to find that balance of celebration, feeling the joy of the season, and also not getting carried away with your diet, emotions, whatever it is. So,
yeah, it's a big time of year.
Dr. Tan, there have been some questions already submitted.
Yeah.
Hopefully those people jumped on. I know, so we're a couple minutes late, but yeah, you want to jump into it?
Yeah, so I think question. So we'll do these first, and feel free for anyone's joining in to just ask questions about anything related to bariatric surgery or weight loss. It does not have to do with the holidays. But there is a question from Rachel that says, I'm considering bariatric sleeve surgery. I'll be 79 in February. Wow, it's a big birthday. February of next year. I'm 5 feet tall and I weigh 198 pounds. Please advise. I'm guessing Rachel wants to know whether or not a sleeve is an option for her. I'll start. I tell everyone age is just a number. Age is just a number. Let me calculate her BMI real quick because I can't do that math in my head. Let's see here. 5 feet tall. What are your thoughts about age, Dr. V?
Yeah, one person 78 is not the same person as another person 78, for sure.
Yeah, I think
if you got a lot left in the tank still at 78, and you're like, man, I just want to get out there and live more, and this is literally a burden. Yeah, we can make progress with that. So
yeah. I think I think the thing is for any of this is like if weight loss is a goal, going to a weight loss center like ours or any other weight loss center nearby that like can address your weight and your weight loss goals is a good place to start. It might not be surgery. That might not be the best option. I think it's good for us to know maybe more information about like, are there other health problems that you have? We'll just have to ask a lot more questions about your overall health. But even if surgery isn't an option, there's a lot of other options available too in terms of medications or just nutritional counseling too.
yeah.
But at 5 feet and 198 pounds, BMI is 38. That's perfectly within reason of kind of what we would typically do surgery for. So it's always a little bit of a multifaceted answer for that. So age is just a number.
I think the oldest I've done surgery on is like 77.
Okay.
67, 76 or 77. And so 70 would probably be the oldest that I've done, but that doesn't mean it's not without the question for sure. So
yeah. I think just like, weight is also just a number, right? There's no like BMI cutoff that we absolutely will not operate under. Similarly, I think age is one person's 80 is very different than another person's 80. So
yeah.
Rachel, please come and see us.
Yeah. Happy to have the conversation about what's going to be right for you to get you to your goals and you live your very best life. So
do you have any other questions on your end? Oh, what was that?
Thank you for submitting the question.
Yeah. Do you have any questions on your end? That's the only one that I think we've gotten.
No, I think you had some questions, some prepared ones that were.
Yeah. We can go through some of those. Yeah. Well, I think before we get started, because I think a lot of this conversation is going to be aimed at folks who've had surgery. I I think, is there anything for patients considering surgery to kind of think about now that we're rounding out the end of the year now? In terms of like, I think the end of the year is always, the holidays is a time of reflection for a lot of folks. And so for folks who've not had surgery, but maybe have it in the back of their mind, is there anything that we should share with them?
Yeah.
You think?
I think it's the timeless question of like, when should I pull this trigger? When should I take this jump? And I think of it in the sense of, if you are continuing to struggle, you want to lose weight, and you want you want to change and live some healthier behaviors, but you just can't seem to make progress on it. You can't seem to really commit. It seems like I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not able to make that progress like I think I want to make, that I should be able to make on my own. Like, that's a normal thing. Understand that's such a common thing that people experience. And that is because you're fighting your biology. And that's why we do surgery. Surgery really helps us fight our biology less, so that you are really working with your body as opposed to against your body. So if you want to lose weight and you want to change your life, we can work with that. Like, literally, and you're struggling and you haven't made any progress, like, just do it. Like, hands down, no questions asked. Like, this is the best tool that you can do. So.
Yeah. I think, it's just, and the end of the year is definitely sometimes the busiest time of year for us as bariatric surgeons. And so I think a lot of folks, again, we're meeting with family, friends, there's lots of reunions. And so I think time of reflection about overall health goals, and in thinking about that, it's always good to think about, do I need some help to get to my health goals? So that's just a note there. But I think
I think it's good to look back too and be like, where am I compared to last year? Where am I compared to the year before? Because if you're like, I haven't made the progress like I wanted to this year, or I've lost progress. Just think about, like, where do you want to be this time next year? And that's what I love this job, being a bariatric surgeon, is that, we can just see so much good change and so much awesome stuff happen in a year, that, where you can be in that time is awesome.
Yeah, totally. And where you can be next year, or this time next year, can be very different as well, depending on some of the choices we make. So, anyways, let's kind of switch gears then and talk about some of the challenges. So I think the holidays are a very notoriously challenging time for everyone. In particular, I think our patients face a lot of specific challenges as well, because the holidays are oftentimes so focused in around eating. I had a patient tell me, or was it a patient? I don't know. I think I had a patient tell me recently that Halloween is like, who came up with Halloween? It is literally just, it's like giving it's like giving drugs to a drug addict. It's just it's a holiday completely just encompassed around candy. And now we're heading into more holidays that are mostly encompassed around food. And so it's very, very difficult. What are some common challenges do you feel like our patients face around the holidays? And we can kind of talk through some of them.
Kind of the foundation around the holidays for many people is emotions. And both good and bad. So there's a lot of people that have, like, maybe it's a time of sad reflection. Maybe they've lost somebody, or, their relationships aren't what they want in their life. Maybe they're not where they want to be health-wise. And it can be a really hard time for them. And, a lot of people that struggle with their weight, a lot of their coping, there's a lot of emotional eating around that. And then there's the opposite of that, actually, which is like the happiness and the joy of being around lots of people, or like with your family and all, whatever it is. And so you're like, that pulls you to eat as well. So I think working on, kind of having a plan how you're going to manage your emotions during the holiday is, I think, one of the first steps that a lot of people need to think about, which is, okay, when I'm feeling really sad, or if I'm feeling really happy, or if I'm feeling really joyful, like, how am I going to not express that without necessarily having eating being a major bedrock of the expression of that emotion? And that part, I think, is number one, thinking about it first is a good place to start. Number two is that you just have to have a plan. Like, hey, when we have this party going on, my plan is I'm going to bring this dish or these couple of dishes, and I'm going to have, maybe I'm even going to bring little tiny serving things, and you have tiny little serving cups or whatever it is that you're going to put your food in. So it's properly measured. You don't have to overdo it. Honestly, I think especially during the holidays, like there's tons of junk food and candy starting from Halloween through New Year's, right? There's lots of superfluous, calories available. And it's not a bad thing to have some of those like during the holidays. Like it's not a bad thing to have an extra 400 calories worth of junk or more. Where people get into trouble is if you like make a pan of brownies for this thing and you demolish them half yourself, or if you have if you just keeps going and it's the portion size. If you get several thousand calories worth of things, especially if it's on a couple instances, then we start really losing progress and we start making it starts getting more and more challenging. And also the head games start too of like, oh man, I just feel this, and then there's the shame about not feeling like you're in control and things like that. So I think having a plan for your emotions and having a plan for your food are the things that I think are some of the most important. So that was kind of a long-winded answer. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think being prepared is probably the biggest thing for most folks, right? And it's tricky especially for folks where this holiday season is going to be their first year after bariatric surgery, because it's going to be very different than your prior holiday seasons and things like that. But I think it's good to spend some time ahead of time reflecting on what are going to be some things that will be challenging for you, right? And then have some preparation in terms of what you want to do when those challenges arise. I agree with you that it's kind of the picking throughout, it's oftentimes like Thanksgiving in particular that's coming up. It's like that big meal at the end of the day that everyone's super excited for. But there's also a lot of you're prepping food all day. There's a lot of snacking in between there that people maybe don't think about as much. And so if that's something that you do, being mindful about that, I think is really, really going to be important. Whether that's just putting everything into a plate before you eat it, that gives you an extra step to be like, okay, I'm going to pause a little bit to think about what I'm eating before I actually eat. And just doing these little things to kind of going back to our basics, right? Never going over the 3/4 of a cup, which is what we teach our patients, generally speaking, and just kind of maintaining those portion sizes as best as you can. That's going to be a good thing to kind of just be prepared for in general. But I will also say, I think it's the spiral afterwards is probably more damaging than anything else, right? And I think it's really important not to have forgiveness for yourself over one day that maybe doesn't go as planned for you from an eating standpoint. No one lost the game or the battle against obesity or weight in one day.
No one lost the war, in one battle.
Yeah, that's never happened. We were talking about the hot dog eating championship or whatever on Netflix, and it's never just one episode of eating that is going to completely derail you, right? It's you have a bad day and then you kind of spiral afterwards, and then the subsequent days are also bad as well. And so I think being mindful of that and giving yourself forgiveness over a day that can be very stressful for a lot of folks is really, really important. And then having a plan for your leftovers is probably important too, and what you're going to do with that. Jason says, I go with the tablespoon method with making a holiday plate, a tablespoon of each thing that I want. Yeah, that's wonderful. Just
nice. That's a good idea.
That's a little bit of everything, but not too much of everything either. So
yeah, Jason, that's a great idea. And also everyone put your, if you have ideas or stuff like that, put it in the chat to share. I think it's really helpful. There's a lot of different stuff. The other thing I actually heard the other day, particularly because I had someone that she's making the Thanksgiving meal, and she's like, I want to make sure that I don't completely fill myself up before we even get to Thanksgiving. And then you feel obligated to eat at Thanksgiving because everyone's sitting down and it's an event, and you're like, well, if I've been kind of picking away and trying different stuff all day while I've been preparing the food, there's not gonna be any space in there at the beginning. So she's like, she's gonna try to chew gum while she is preparing food.
Okay.
So that way it gives her something to do, and like it's kind of a pain to take it out of her mouth to try some other food. And kind of just it's those little things. It's those little things that really help turn the battle in those instances. So.
Yeah. And I'll also say, I think, another source of stress, though, is especially, again, if this is your first year after having had bariatric surgery and going into this, is being as openly communicative with like your family and your friends as much as possible ahead of time, or like having statements prepared going into that meal or that event. Knowing that you are going to get questions. People get offended if you don't eat what they made, or if you don't, go for seconds, or if people don't know that you've had bariatric surgery. And if that's not something that you're ready to share, having something, again, prepared that you can say and ready to go to kind of deflect some of that pressure is going to be really helpful as well, because things will be different this year than before. So, Nicole says, I'm going to bring my own small plate to dinner, which is great. I think that's so smart. Just like having your own, I tell all my patients to get little containers to eat from before their surgery to kind of prepare. And so having that ready to go is also a great way to kind of stay on track too.
Great idea. Yeah.
Holiday
parties too. Like just plan when you're like, oh gosh, there's gonna be all this junk there. I don't know what I'm gonna eat. Just plan on bringing your own food, plan on bringing stuff to contribute to the cause. But if you have the control, take back the control about knowing that there's going to be some things that you could eat there.
Yeah. And again, just like letting people know that's kind of what you're going to do this year. Setting kind of your own boundaries is important too, right? Depending on your family.
Yes.
I know I'm a family where setting boundaries is important. And I think another thing is just like in general, the holidays are super stressful for folks. And I think when I see patients who come back to me who have had weight regain over time, it's pretty much always like something stressful happened, something stressful triggered something in their life, and then they never really got back on track. And so kind of doing your best to manage stress, which is easier said than done, but kind of knowing that oftentimes that stress is kind of that baseline thing that causes a lot of larger issues is important as well.
Yep. I think it's about also, I encourage you just make some more visits during this time too. Like have your team on board. And, sometimes for people when they're really struggling emotionally or psychologically, seeing your therapist, having some visits scheduled with your therapist, have some visits scheduled with your bariatric team, with your nutritionist, just to make sure that you're on track and that you have the accountability. And it's like, and just keep getting through it. So.
Yeah. I think that's like so important, because I always tell folks like, because after surgery, we have our set schedule with our patients. And I think a lot of patients go away thinking that they don't need to see us unless there's something terribly going wrong, like physically with them, which is not the case. It's really if you are struggling in any way, whether that's from like an eating standpoint, stress, like a weight standpoint, these are all good reasons to check in. And like oftentimes I'll have visits with patients and I don't really offer anything like substantial from a medical standpoint. I would say like there's nothing groundbreaking that we're doing. I'm not prescribing any like medications. I'm not like ordering any labs that are new, but I think sometimes just having that face-to-face time with someone who is like on your team and kind of knows what you've been through is going to be really important to give you that accountability, and then also just to kind of give you some guidance along the way too. So always come and see us. And again, the holidays can be difficult for that. So in that same realm, like if you do get off track and you're struggling after the holidays, do you have any advice for patients in terms of what to do?
I think the first thing to do is to ask, get help right away.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're struggling, just reach out and make it a visit, and you're like, man, I can't get my feet underneath me, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a really important piece. And then the other thing is just go back to the basics. So portion sizes, if you're, a year plus out, about 3/4 cup portion size. And then if you have, protein first, and then, getting back into tracking, I think all that stuff is really important, is just get back on track, stay on track.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
That has been, I've had a lot of visits recently where we've just talked a lot about getting back to basics, going back to tracking. I've seen a couple of patients recently where it's just, they haven't checked in a few years, and they're a little off track, or they've had some weight regain. And that's always the first thing that we go back to, is just, let's go back to tracking, and no one likes tracking, I think. But it is so important to do when you are off track, because it just gives you some of that feedback loop. I think it's not something that I ask any of my patients to ever do forever. But whenever you kind of get off track, go back to tracking a little bit. I would say the holidays is the same way. If the holidays are a rough time for you, maybe plan next week, Friday or Saturday, I'm going to track my days for a couple of days in a row. And maybe you haven't tracked in a long time, but that's a good time to kind of, again, go back to basics, be fully aware of what your habits are looking like and what you're doing. So that's probably number one. And then, coming to see us if that doesn't work fully.
What do you think about medication?
Well, I think I don't think if you have a bad day on Thanksgiving, we need to put you on a medication the next day. I think that's a little but I think, for one, I think this conversation applies to everyone who is taking medications right now, which there are a lot of folks taking medications. And again, for those folks, this holiday season is going to look a lot different than maybe the last holiday season that they had before. But in general, I think medications are very helpful for folks who are struggling to get back on track. For some folks, just saying, okay, I'm going to go back to tracking. I'm going to go back to kind of eating my small portions, focusing on the protein. And that's just, that mindfulness is enough for them to kind of get back on track. But sometimes it is not easily doable. And that has a lot to do with just the hormonal changes your body goes through over time after a surgery, and after significant weight loss.
Yeah.
And that's where medications can be very, very, very helpful for those folks as well. So
I think especially, having a time where you're like, well, I've been kind of thinking about medication. If you've been thinking about doing medication, or like, hey, how do I kind of get on track? Now's not a bad time to hey, maybe this would help me out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's never a right time to do this, right? It's just whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
I think people have different ways of thinking about it. They're either like, oh, well, I don't want to jump into things before the holidays. And other folks are like, I need help with the holidays. I know it's going to be a bad time. So there's no right time, but yeah. All right. What about, let's see here. Those are the things that I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, those are the things I had too. So.
Yeah. I don't know if there's another thing that we want to chat about, or if there's any questions on your end.
No.
Let's see here. Right.
Just a lot of hellos.
I have some hellos too. Hello, everyone. All right.
So thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah, maybe we can keep this one short.
No. All right, everyone. Enjoy the holidays. We're here for you. If you need help, reach out. And we have a lot of tools for people that are struggling with their health, with their weight, and can make some great progress. So thank you for tuning in. And we're looking forward to doing this next time.
Yeah, I think we'll be back in another 2 weeks, and I think we'll talk about like common. It'll be like a Mythbusters.
Oh,
somewhere.
nice.
I
Excellent.
know.
Yeah.
We'll
Great.
be busting some myths.
Bust some myths. Excellent.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Have a great day.
All right. Bye.